The 8th convocation of the Ukrainian parliament has set new records, and it will likely be remembered for the far-reaching decisions made during some of the most tumultuous times. However, out of more than 10,000 bills considered by the Verkhovna Rada, only a third was adopted. They can be grouped into 4 categories: the bills on reforms, on military strategies, bills concerning national identity, and bills on prospects. The outgoing parliament launched a judicial, educational, and healthcare reforms. The justice reform was set into motion in September 2016, when the constitution amendments on judiciary came into force. In 2018, the parliament adopted a law on the anti-corruption court, which should complete the system of anti-corruption bodies in Ukraine. The first phase of the education reform began in 2018, which focuses on primary school. Among other things, the emphasis is on inclusive education and introducing innovative practices. Public school principals are now appointed for a 10-year term based on a competition. The healthcare reform is expected to take 3 years. The first phase has already been implemented. Now primary medical care is provided by so-called family physicians. Patients are free to choose theirs before signing an agreement with a family doctor.
Now, every month they are paid based on the number of agreements with patients they've signed. According to the National Health Service statistics, more than 27 million Ukrainians have already signed an agreement with their physician.
As far as the defense and security sector is concerned, the Verkhovna Rada adopted the law on national security. It is aimed at strengthening the country's defense potential and opening new venues for military cooperation with Ukraine's allies. The law also allows a civilian to be appointed as Minister of Defense. In 2018, the Rada suspended the agreement on friendship and cooperation with Russia. It was signed back in 1997. The parliament also adopted the law on the deoccupation of Donbass. The law officially names Russia as an aggressor state, while recognizing certain territories of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions as temporarily occupied. The law apportions responsibility for the torture, executions, and other acts of violence committed by the militants in the occupied territories and in Russia.
Naming Russia the aggressor sends an important message, first and foremost to the international community, that we clearly identify this as not some kind of internal conflict on the territory of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. It's not some local conflict. It's an aggression by a neighboring state, a signatory of the Budapest Memorandum, which guaranteed territorial integrity of Ukraine.
The term decommunization became well known in Ukraine in 2015, when the parliament passed a law condemning the communist and the Nazi regimes. It outlaws the public use of their symbols, with the exception made for historical and educational materials, as well as museums and other uses, which do not glorify the aforementioned totalitarian regimes. Decommunization also includes renaming 284 villages, 7 cities and towns, and 9 districts, which were named to glorify the Moscow-imposed leaders and heroes during the Kremlin's rule. The Verkhovna Rada also adopted a new language law, which cemented the status of the Ukrainian language as the country's only official language. The country's constitution has also been changed in order to cement its course to EU and NATO integration.
The changes that took place in Ukraine in 2014, and we're talking not just about changes of leadership, we're talking about a shift in the public opinion and the attitudes of the society. Whereas before 2014, the course to join NATO had not more than 20% of public support. Now polls suggest it is supported by around 40% of active voters, while joining the European Union is supported by more than half of the country's population.
During the final month of its term, the 8th convocation of the parliament passed a law on the impeachment of the president. MPs also adopted a new electoral code, according to which the 10th convocation of the Rada will be elected under so-called open-list proportional system, where the number of votes for candidates will determine their position within party lists. Reported by Olga Mikhalyuk, UATV.